Let's transition and let's go to a battle in the Bay. It's the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to San Francisco to take on the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are favored by 4 points. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff in the Bay. The over-under for this matchup is 43.5 points. And Kyle Shanahan says that Brock Purdy's availability is unknown at the moment. So if Brock Purdy does not play, Sam Darnold will get the start for the San Francisco 49ers. And I'll get to that here in a bit. But when I look at this matchup between the Bengals and the 49ers, the NFL sure did give the Bengals a break and gave them a favorable matchup in week 8 as they play the 49ers, because the Bengals had a bye week in week 7. So they had 14 days to prepare for the 49ers. The 49ers, on the other hand, are fresh off of 2 games played on the East Coast against the Browns and against the Vikings on Monday night. So the 49ers on a short week have to play the Bengals after the Bengals just had 14 days to prepare for the 49ers. So if you're a Bengal fan, you should feel pretty good about your chances at being able to upset the 49ers, because the Bengals have had 2 weeks to prepare for the 49ers. 49ers have only had 6 days to prepare for the Cincinnati Bengals. So from a standpoint of preparation, the Bengals already have the edge over the Niners. But when I look at these two teams played against each other in Super Bowl 16 and in Super Bowl 23. The 49ers beat the Bengals in both matchups. In the Super Bowl, I think Joe Montana won a Super Bowl for the 49ers in one of those matchups. So this is a great matchup between two teams who have, I would say, came into the season with Super Bowl aspirations, but things have not gone well for both of these teams at different points of the season. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals were 1-3 at one point in the season, in the first 4 weeks of the year, and they just won 2 straight games over NFC West opponents in the Arizona Cardinals and against the Seattle Seahawks. And I said that I was really, really impressed with the Bengals defense against the Seahawks in their Week 6 win, because defensively, the Bengals won that football game. Their offense didn't play well in the second half against the Seahawks in Week 6. Joe Burrow played great against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 5, but against the Seahawks in Week 6, he didn't play well in the second half. And I thought the Bengals offense, they were very, very inconsistent in that game against the Seahawks in Week 6. They didn't have a single touchdown in the second half, and they struggled to put together consistent drives on that Seahawks defense. And so I was critical about that Bengals defense for the first, I would say, 4 weeks of the season. And then they played well against the Arizona Cardinals, but I'm not going to give the Bengals defense credit for playing well against Joshua Dobbs. It's Joshua Dobbs. Come on now. Come on. I judge defenses on how they perform against opposing elite offenses and opposing elite quarterbacks. So I thought the Bengals' performance against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 6 was their best defensive performance of the season. You got to remember, this is a Bengals defense that in Week 1, they gave up 24 to Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. They gave up 27 to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in Week 2. They did decent against the Rams in Week 3, only giving up 16 points, but the Rams didn't even have Cooper Kupp in that matchup. Week 4, they gave up 27 to Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans. So in the first 4 weeks of the season, everyone wanted to blame the Bengals' struggles on Joe Burrow being injured with that calf injury. But I said the reason why the Bengals are struggling in the first 4 weeks of the season wasn't because of Joe Burrow. It was because of that defense. And I got to give them credit. Against the Seattle Seahawks, they put together a great performance. A great performance. The Seahawks only had 87 rushing yards, and Kenneth Walker is a dynamic running back in the backfield. I like Kenneth Walker. He's in his second season in the NFL, but he wasn't able to really get into a rhythm against the Bengals in week 6. Kenneth Walker only had 19 carries for 62 rushing yards, averaging over 3 yards per carry. But I thought the Bengals defense did a great job at slowing down Kenneth Walker, and they also forced Geno Smith into 2 interceptions. So give the Bengals defense some credit for how they performed against the Seahawks. This is a different test going up against the 49ers, though. But because the 49ers are starting Sam Darnold, this also is an advantage for the Bengals. Now, I don't believe that Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. I damn sure don't believe that Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback. But Brock Purdy is average. Sam Darnold is awful. He's an awful quarterback in the NFL. And so far in his career, Sam Darnold, his career record as a starting quarterback is 21-34. He has 61 touchdowns, 55 interceptions, 11,768 passing yards, completing 60% of his passes. But Sam Darnold is not very good. Let's look at Sam Darnold since he's entered the NFL in 2018. His passer rating is 78.2. That's the worst in the NFL. His 61 touchdowns and 55 interceptions, his touchdown interception ratio is also the worst in the NFL. His 60% completion percentage is the worst in the NFL, and his passing yards per game are 196 passing yards per game. That is second worst in the NFL since 2018. So, no, I do not believe that Brock Purdy is a good quarterback nor elite quarterback, but Brock Purdy is better than Sam Darnold. And so this is an opportunity for the Bengals to steal a game on the road in a situation where they had 14 days to prepare for Kyle Shanahan's offense. 14 days. So, considering the 49ers are fresh off of 2 back-to-back losses on the East Coast to the Browns and to the Vikings, and considering the 49ers are going to start Sam Darnold instead of Brock Purdy, if Brock Purdy does not pass the concussion protocol, this could be a game in which the Bengals could steal on the road as an underdog and start to head in the right direction as we get into the second half of the season. So this is a great chance for the Bengals, for sure. Now, when I look at the Cincinnati Bengals overall, you look at Joe Burrow, and this is Joe Burrow after the bye week in the last 2 seasons. In 2021, Joe Burrow, after the bye, his record was 5-2. He averaged 302 passing yards per game, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, passer rating of 115. Last year, Joe Burrow's record after the bye, 7-0, 277 passing yards per game, 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, passer rating was 98.5. So Joe Burrow plays well after the bye week. And so when you look at the Bengals schedule over the next few weeks, they are in San Francisco against the Niners in week 8. Week 9, home against the Bills. Week 10, they are home against the Texans. Week 11, they are in Baltimore. Week 12, they're home against the Steelers. And week 13, they are in Jacksonville. So these next few weeks for the Bengals are going to be tough. They're going to need Joe Burrow to be at his best. They're going to need him to be at his best. So far this season, Joe Burrow, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,230 passing yards. He's completing 63% of his passes. They're going to need Joe Burrow to be at his best over the next few weeks. I think the Bengals have the toughest remaining schedule in the NFL. So it's going to be interesting because week 9 against the Bills at home, that's a game the Bengals could lose. Week 10, they should handle their business against C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. But C.J. Stroud's been playing well so far this year. He really, really has. Then week 11, they are in Baltimore. That's a game the Bengals could lose. Week 12, home against the Steelers. The way the Steelers are currently playing, that's a game the Bengals could lose. So if you look at the Bengals schedule over the next 5 weeks, Niners, Bills, Texans, Ravens, Steelers, the Bengals could go 1-4 in their stretch. The only game that's a for sure winnable game is against the Texans. But I can see the Bengals losing to the 49ers, losing to the Bills, losing to the Ravens and Steelers. And at that point, the Bengals would be, if they go 1-4 over the next 4 weeks, they'll be 4-7. That would be bad. So week 9, that game, it's a Sunday night game next week here at Paycor Stadium. That's a game that the Bengals need to take care of business in. The Bengals can definitely beat the Bills. Even though I'm talking about how the Bengals could lose these games, they can also win these games, especially if Joe Burrow is at his best. Now, the Bengals need to run the football more with Joe Mixon. I think Zach Taylor needs to get Joe Mixon more involved in the running game. So far, 96 carries, 366 rushing yards, averaging 3.8 yards per carry, only 1 touchdown. My cousin was talking in the group chat earlier, talking about how Joe Mixon is having a bad season. I just don't feel like the Bengals give him enough carries and enough opportunities to be successful. And I know if you look at the stats, Joe Mixon is 12th in the NFL in total carries so far this year. But to me, Zach Taylor, he gets pass happy. And he has Joe Burrow dropping back the pass over 45 times in games. I think that should be more so closer to 35. I think if you got Joe Burrow dropping back the pass 30 to 35 times per game, that's more of a recipe for success for the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, T. Higgins, he has to play better. He got to play better for the Bengals to be true Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. So far, T. Higgins, 14 receptions, 149 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Not good enough. Not good enough. T. Higgins has to elevate his game and be that co-star receiver alongside Jamar Chase. Because when I look at the Bengals offense this year, the Bengals offense has been Jamar Chase or bust. No one else on this Bengals offense has really stepped up and been reliable for Joe Burrow to depend on. Again, Joe Mixon doesn't really get enough opportunities in the run game. Irv Smith has been flat out garbage this year. He's been garbage. And I thought that the Bengals had the type of system in which you can just insert any tight end in and they will be effective. We saw Hayden Hurst be effective in this Bengals offense. We saw C.J. Uzomah be effective in this Bengals offense. Irv Smith hasn't done anything this year. 6 receptions for 32 receiving yards. He's been awful this year. So the Bengals need some more consistent play, especially out of T. Higgins. Especially out of T. Higgins if they're going to be Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. Now, when I look at the 49ers, obviously you look at the 49ers, offensively, the 49ers are top tier in a lot of categories offensively. They average 29 points per game. That's ranked second in the NFL. And they average 136 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 7th in the NFL. So Christian McCaffrey, his ability to run between the tackles and make plays in the open field helps this 49ers offense flow at an elite level. They're going to get back Trent Williams this week. Trent Williams did not play in their Week 7 loss against the Vikings. Trent Williams is one of their best players on their football team. And up front, you got Trent Williams at left tackle. You got Aaron Banks at left guard. You got Jake Brendale at center. Spencer Buford at right guard. So this 49ers offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And they open up a lot of running lanes for Christian McCaffrey. They really, really do. But Christian McCaffrey, you can make a legit argument that Christian McCaffrey has been the best running back in the NFL this year. 26 carries, 125 carries, 598 rushing yards, averaging close to 5 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey has been very, very effective in this 49ers offense. And the 49ers won't have Deebo Samuel in this game. So they got Brandon Ayuk. They got Jennings as well. And they got George Kittle. Those are their main weapons without Deebo Samuel. So considering the Bengals had 14 days to prepare for the 49ers, and the 49ers are on a short week, and they may not have Brock Purdy in this matchup, nor will they have Deebo Samuel, this is a game in which the Bengals could steal. But with all that being said, I'm rolling with the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Santa Clara Sunday afternoon. I'm going 49ers 24, Bengals 21. But I do think this game will be close. But I'm going to roll with the Niners to beat the Bengals in San Francisco 24-21. Everybody go and follow